If you have watched any other robot mower review, you've probably thought those are too big, too bulky, too expensive, and not quite smart enough. Well, do I have the new robot mower for you? This is the Mammotion Yuka Mini. A huge thank you to Mammotion for sponsoring this video. Let's get started. So first off, let's start, why is this beneficial to have versus any of the other mowers? Well, there are two different sizes for this. You can get the 0.2 acre model or the 0.15. My lot is actually only 0.2 acres, but my yard size is actually only 0.05 acres. So I definitely could use the smallest model, save some money there to get that to cover the lawn. And then you have two different heights. So you have the higher model or the H version, which covers 2 inches to 3.5 inches, or you could get the standard height, which is going to be 0.8 inches to 2.4 inches. So hopefully your yard fits into that category if you're looking for this. But another benefit of this is the size. This is only 25 pounds, very easy to pick up, move around. Most likely you don't have to move it around once you've set it up and mapped your lawn. But I know my dad has had to push one of the mowers I've tested, and it was a little hard to do. So having a little smaller model is better. And then we have a smaller yard. I don't need a massive mower that's going to mow in a couple hours. This can take its time, get the job done, and going to do the job. Now, whenever you turn this on, has this awesome turn on sound, so we know it's ready to go. Now, next I want to talk about how the smarts have increased on these. Now, this uses an RTK, so right behind me is the antenna that it relays to, and then it uses a vision system that's right here on the front. I didn't have to do anything to get that installed. It was already there. This uses Ultra Sense AI, so it's able to see where it's going as well as back up to the RTK to know where it's going. Now, if at any time the RTK signal is lost, it's able to continue to maneuver for about 300 feet, and then it could pick up the signal again and keep going. So I love that it has that backup. It's just not gonna stop in the middle of your lawn and give up. It will continue to keep going. Now, another thing that's different from like the Yuka Mini that I recently talked about is this has manual height control. So I have a knob here where I'm going to change the control there. And we're gonna set this to 3.5 inches to start out. But like the Mini, it has a interchangeable battery in the back. So you can actually remove the battery and replace it if you need to. You could have another battery that you've charged up and use it as well. So it's nice that these models do have that replaceable battery, as I think that might be the first thing. If these fail, we don't really know how long these are gonna last because they're sort of newer, but that would be something that's easy to replace. And then down here on the bottom, you have the cutting deck. Now this deck is 7.5 inches wide, so it's about 200 millimeters, a little less than that, I guess. But then it has the 5 blades here, so it's gonna cut your lawn no problem. Now the big difference between this Yuka model and the other Lubas I've talked about is this has 2-wheel drive. So you have these 2 wheels on the bottom here, and these are just kind of there to help it move around. Now, even though it has 2-wheel drive, it's still able to go up 50% slope or 27 degrees, which is going to be plenty for the yard here. So now left to do, I'm just going to show you kind of what you need to have to get it set up, what it comes with, and then we're going to map out the lawn. I've already mapped out one, but I'm going to show you how we can auto map the others. Now inside the box, this has everything that you will need. Under here we have the charging base station, the Yuka Mini. Here we have the RTK antenna, and then you have 2 power cords. So we have one power cord that's going to the power outlet over there, but then we have the RTK that's directly connected into the base station. If you need to have the RTK somewhere else, you are able to do that, and it comes with a second power source for that, but I really like how I can have all of it connected with the one power source right here. Now with the antenna right here, one option you have is to also mount it from your roof. You can adjust this right here where you can tilt it and rotate it, so you could have it on your roof and then you just have this mounted, and it comes with screws to be able to do that. Or you can sit it here. We're getting plenty of signal where it's not going to be an issue right here against the fence. It is recommended to have it like 5 to 10 feet away from anything that's taller than 6 feet. After about 3 months of usage, it's recommended to replace the blades, and it does come with replacements, and it's easy as unscrewing the screw here, and it has a new screw and blade to put in. And then right under here on the front, you have a little handle that you can grab onto and move it around. Now that it's plugged in and connected, we're going to head into the Mammotion app to get it mapped out. Now here in the Mammotion app, I just need to tap add. It will then find my device. So here we have the RTK and we have the Yuka Mini. So we'll just need to tap on those and then it will add it into your app. Now that I've added those, here you can see the Yuka Mini RTK and you have the Yuka Mini. Now you will need to update the software on them each separately. So if you ever need to do that, you go to the settings, device info, it will tell you if you need a software update, and the same thing will happen here on the RTK settings device info. It is already on the latest firmware. So there was actually an update earlier today, and you can go in here to the firmware release notes and you can see what updates they have already made. It's great that they can easily make these updates. So now that we have everything set up, we're gonna go into the Yuka Mini here. So to get to this page, I'm just tapping on the robot. And then I have my map for the one area, but we want to map the next area. So I'm going to tap map, and then I'm going to drive it. So we have some controls here. So I can just drive it like that. And we're gonna go to the next area we want to add. So I'm gonna tap create, and we're going to create an area. And now that we have made it to the area, this is where we can start. Now I'm actually going to overlap this area because the blades are in the center. I want to make sure it's cutting all the way to the edge. So we're going to stay right here and we're going to hit start task area. And it is best to not do that on the corner. So we're going to move in a little bit, start, and then we have the manual mapping or the auto mapping, and you can switch between them at any time. And you just drive where you want it to go. And now down here in the bottom right, I'm going to tap auto mapping and see how it does. So it's just going to do its best to follow along the edge here. I think for this area, the manual mapping is going to work. So I'm just going to reverse here. And it's undoing what I just did. And now I can drive forward. And there the task area is complete. So we're gonna click save, and then the next thing we need to do is create a channel. So I'm just gonna go to the corner here, tap create. We also have the option to create a no-go zone. We can do a pattern, but we're gonna do the channel. And so this is going to drive it from one area to the next, making sure it follows the path I want. And now that we're to the next area, we just tap save. And now I'm gonna go ahead and map the last area. And for this area, I'm gonna do full auto mapping. It's driving all by itself to figure out where the lawn is, just to see how well that performs. Wrong way, buddy. For best results, cut your lawn or your weeds first. Okay, so auto mapping over here didn't work so well, so I manually did most of this, but it did a great job around this bend here in the back. And now that we're back up here, let's try the automatic again. So right now it's staying a little bit away from the edge. We'll see how it performs when we do the real mow. I have now finished mapping out the lawn, so we are now ready to mow. So we can tap the mow button here. We can choose all areas. We can choose the order we want it to mow. So whatever we select, that's the order it's going to mow. So let's go ahead, select all. Confirm. Now there have been a few updates where you have more settings here with the Yuka Mini. So now you have a task speed. Before I was only able to go at 1 speed, but now I'm able to go all the way up to 2.0 and down to 0.7. Next, we have the option to change the path spacing. So you can go to 3.1 and 4.7. And this is important because the cutting deck is in the middle of the robot, so you can have it get closer together. So further apart, you may miss some, but it might also be faster. Then next we have the customize path. So you now have the customize where you can choose the angle, you have optimal, or you can choose random. The working direction will change each time the robot starts mowing. Next we have the obstacle detection. So you can do off, you can do the standard, or here we have the sensitive. Then next we have perimeter laps. Now originally it was doing 2, but now you have the option to do no perimeter, or you can do all the way up to 4 perimeter laps, and it's just gonna go in a little bit each time. Next we have the option for no-go zone mowing laps. So if you have an object that you've placed in the middle of your yard as a no-go zone, you can set how many laps it's going to do around that. Then here we have the path order. So you can have zigzag first, or you can have it do the perimeter first. So we're just going to do the zigzag first. And then last, you have the option to start the progress. You know, if you want to go halfway through or near the end or start at the beginning,
or at the very beginning, you can do that. Now that we have all those settings up here, you can see exactly where the pattern is going to be. It even shows you line by line what it's going to do. And then you can see it's going to do all lawns. So here we can see the task time is 208 minutes for this full mow. And that is when we are set at 1.0. Let's go ahead and give it a little more speed at 1.6. And then we will see what that is. And that brought it down to 161 minutes, which is great. Now, the first few mowings we're going to test at 1.0, and then I'll come back and do a full 2.0 speed test and see how that goes.
I think it's time to cut the weeds. I mean the grass. And let's hit start. Now for the first mow, there was a lot of tall grass areas as well as weeds. So it did struggle getting past some of those. So I did have to come out with the weed eater and cut some of them down. And then it also started raining. And in the app, there is a setting where you can have it not mow on rainy days, but I turned that off just to see how it would do. And it did a pretty good job, finished up, and then came back to charge. Now, as the Yuka Mini was coming back to the base station, I have it driving over some rocks right here, and it was struggling a bit there, but what I did is I put some little 3D printed boxes under the rocks. That makes it so they're not moving around as much, and now it is able to dock without any issues. So everything's good so far. Next, I did another few different mows where I had it go different directions, and it worked flawlessly. It was able to go around this yard. Here you can see in my time lapse, it conquered this front area, and then it also did the other area perfectly, lining up exactly where I drove it when I mapped. And here on the other yard, even when it's going around the border for the final finish, it was mowing half on the grass and half on the sidewalk to have that nice finish at the very edge, and that worked really, really well. So now all I have to do is go through with my weed eater and kind of edge and trim up a little bit, and it's ready to go out next time. And after a half a day's worth of work, the lawn is now mowed. Let's see how it did. And here is the before on area 1 and the after. So taking a look at the first area, everything looks great. It did miss 1 or 2 strands here, so maybe when it was doing the border or something. Now you do have the option to, which was just updated, you can have it do the border first and then mow, or do the border last after it's done mowing, or not do the border at all. So it's nice that you have those options. And here is the before on area 2 and the after. And looking over here, this looks great. Now you can see that the 3.5 was definitely a little bit too long. I could have done a little bit lower. Some of the spots here, you can see when it perfectly cut at that 3.5 inch length, which I think looks great. And then once it finished this area, it automatically moved to the backyard. Here is the before on area 3 and the after. Now instead of starting from there, it went to the furthest area away from the channel. So I went all the way back here and started, and this looks great. This corner right here is actually one of the hardest parts that these robot mowers have with my lawn, and it was able to cut fine through here. Missed one little section right here, but I'm gonna trim that down. I think it was just a little long, and then we'll do one more cut. And over here, the rest looks great. Now I still have a ton of weeds I need to kill, but very happy with the result of how this looks. And then of course, after it's done, I just went through and trimmed up the edges to make them all look nice. One more little section here that was a little too tall. Now I haven't done a full battery test yet, but the end of mowing this area about 1.5 times, it still had 50% battery left. I just haven't done my full lawn left. Now one other thing that this has is floating cutting. So as it is going over, it's moving the base here up and down a little bit so that it has a nice flat cut along the ground, so that everything is going to look smooth and have a nice carpet-like finish. Now that is very hot to the touch, so be careful. You can also get an accessory of the Luba Garage, so this is able to protect it. These are IP6X water resistant, so you are able to get them wet, but this is great that you can just sit it right over the Luba device, and it protects it, keeps it looking nice and clean. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the area this can cover. So I mentioned how this covers 0.2 acres of lawn. Now, in my last video, I said how that is how much it can do in one day, but others have said that is not how it works. That's how much area it has. So now I'm going to do a test to see how much area this can actually map. So I'm going to map a few different
yards in the neighborhood or maybe the street to get to that point 2 and over that point 2 and see if I'm able to keep going, because I think you could use this where it mows your lawn one day, the next day it mows the neighbors, and the next day it mows the neighbors, and then it repeats that every few days so that every lawn is looking pretty nice. So we'll do that test now and see what happens. And the verdict is, I learned something new today. So here, if we look at my area right now of the map, so I actually only have area 1, 2, and 3. And if I go and tap mow and I choose area 1, 2, and 3, then you can see that that is a total of 1,926 square feet. Well, this is the 0.2 model of the Yuka Mini, so that means the area should be able to cover 0.2 acres. And then if you check the specs on the Mammotion website, it says that max area can go up to 0.3 acres. So 0.3 acres is actually 13,068 square feet or something like that. So if we keep mapping, and I went ahead and I mapped this area 5, and I mapped this ginormous area 4, and I mapped this other area 6. So I just kept mapping, and it let me keep mapping until I got to more than the 13,000 square feet. So now if I go in here to choose what areas I want to mow, and I select all to mow all the areas and confirm, now it's telling us that I have mapped 12,572 square feet. So I do have room for another small, like 400 square foot area, but that is not very big. And this of course is going to take a very long time, but it can do that. So that's good that it can do a ton of areas, and I believe I only have 10 different sections or zones that I can create with this model, and that increases as the sizes go up. We'll talk about sizes in a minute, but here you can see that I have quite a bit of area. My land is not very big, but it could mow a very large area. Now, as I was going through and mapping more areas, I did try to map an area 7, and it gave me a warning that I have reached the upper limit of the area that it can get to. And then once I select save on that area, it didn't save because it was too big. And so internet, I was wrong, thanks to the commenter who called me out on that. So this was a fun lesson to learn exactly how these are working. So the big question is, which robot is best for your lawn? Let's go ahead and talk about all the different Mammotion robots and what the sizes are and what is going to work best for your yard. So starting off with the Yuka Mini 600, you have 0.15 acre in size or a max of 0.2 acres. With the Yuka Mini 800, which is what I have, we have 0.2 acres, or you can get a total max of 0.3 acres. Then we have the Luba Mini, which the 800 is a 0.2 acre, or you can get up to 0.25 on the max area. Then you have the Luba Mini all-wheel drive 1500, which is the 0.37 acre. That's the one I previously made a video about. And it can go max area 0.44 acre. So it cannot quite get the half acre like I mentioned in the video, but it can get very, very close. Now next we have the regular Yuka size. So it's bigger than this, but the unique feature about it is it has a bag on the back and it can auto dump the bag. So if it picks up leaves, it can then put that somewhere on your lawn. And that has a lawn size of 0.25 acre and a max mowing size of 0.4 acres. And then we have the Lubas. So we have the Luba 2 3000, which has a 0.75 acre, or you can go up to 0.9 acres. So that is the one I tested out. That was plenty of what we needed for that lawn. If you want to go more, you can go with the Luba 2 all-wheel drive 5000, which has a 1.25 acre size, or the max area is 1.5 acres. And then if you want to go to the full Luba 2 all-wheel drive 10,000, that has a lawn size of 2.5 acres that it can mow, and it can go max 3 acres. So Mammotion had a picture of a mower that is actually mowing multiple lawns in the neighborhood. So that is definitely the one you would want to go with, because not only is it going to mow my 0.2 acre lawn, it can mow the 10 neighbors near me and still be able to reach all that with that max mowing size of 3 acres. So there you go. Final answer. It depends on the robot, and it can only go to an area of that size. So in the end, this Yuka Mini right here can go all the way up to 0.3 acres, which I have 0.2 lot, but my lawn is nowhere near 0.2. So you really could get away with pretty big lawn with even the small Yuka like this. I hope that helped you answer a few questions about what size you need for your lawn. And no, they cannot climb upstairs, so that's not gonna happen, but it can go up a pretty steep slope. Now with this faster speed, it's able to get through the lawn much quicker. Really love that improvement. And of course, it might not be as accurate. You can always slow it down to have a really nice smooth cut, but really happy to see this improvement. So how much of an improvement was 2.0 speeds? Let's see. Here in the top corner we have 0.7, off to a slow start. In the middle, 1.3, it's doing pretty good, about middle, and then 2.0, there you go, finishing first, no problem. So a huge difference between the 1.0. As you can see that the 1.0 is still about to finish that first run, and there it now finished. So a huge improvement with those new speeds. It's now time for a speed battery test. So we're gonna do 2 FPS, feet per second. We're gonna do the spacing at 4.7 inches, so spreading out as far as we can. Random path, zigzag. Then we're gonna do standard obstacle detection, perimeter mowing laps. Let's go ahead and add 2 on there. And that looks good. So now we're gonna do all areas. It says 109 minutes. Let's see if we can do it in 1 battery charge. Go Yuka, go. Now up here at the top, I did mow at the 2.4 inch, and then down here I mowed at the 2.0 inches, which is the lowest it can go. Has a really nice clean cut. It was able to get much lower and have a really nice solid cut. That floating cutting is doing its job right here to make a smooth carpet-like finish. And there the Yuka Mini is at 1% left. There it hit 100%, so it did that in 152 minutes. It still has 33% battery life left, so if it got down to about 15%, it would automatically go to the charger. It did take a little bit more to come all the way back here, but let's go ahead and check out the task record. So here it was able to complete in 152 minutes, and then it covered 1,927 square feet. So there still was a little bit more battery life left. It could have gone about 15 to 18% more. About 15% I think is when it comes back to the charger. And I was able to do this much faster with that improved speed, as well as being able to do a wider distance. Of course, it was awesome. I was able to mow at night. Let's talk about night mode. Now, one addition to this year's Mammotion robots is the added LED light on the front. So this allows it to turn on the light while it's mowing so that it still has its vision capabilities and it's able to run fully without any issues. I haven't had any problems with it going out at night. You do even have the option to turn off the LED light in the settings, and that will still allow it to run, but it doesn't have as much vision obstacle avoidance. So either way, it's still going to work just fine, but it's really nice that they have added this light. And when you do control it from the app, you're able to kind of see a little bit better where it is, where it's going, and you have the option to turn on that light at other times as well if it is off. So here you can see it was able to mow throughout my yard without any issues, even picked up a few animals here and there, but really cool that it is able to run fully at night. Some others that I have tested when they run at night, they're not able to edge, but here you can see it had no problem there. One day later, we have the lawn at 2 inches high. This is actually the lowest I've ever mowed the lawn. It looks really good. You can see, there's a bunch of extra grass where it had a lot to cut down, but this looks great. I probably wouldn't ever go lower than this, so I think that's a pretty good height, and you can go all the way up to that 3.5 inches. So here, looking great. I'm not seeing any gaps or anything from it being a little bit wider than what it originally was set to. So that's a win, and it's great that it did it so much faster. Yeah, everything's looking great here. Good lines. Maybe up against, maybe right here, there's a few longer strips, but it did great. It did do obstacle avoidance here under the tree, so it didn't do it right there, but everywhere else did a solid job. Ooh, nice. And as for obstacle avoidance, it did a great job here. There were some skateboards out and other toys on the yard, and it was able to navigate around them without trying to run over them at all. And when it did the final border around the edge, it did a great job lining up to where I had mapped it out, getting pretty close to the edge in some areas. It's never got stuck on my lawn, so that's always a win. And here you can see how close it is trying to get to that edge. I think they should do some smoothing out of the algorithm. Here you can see it's going back and forth, but it should see that edge and it should just follow right along with it. Now, in order to use this with our voice assistant, we need to have a task created. So we're going to go into the tasks and create a new task. So we're going to then select what areas we want. We could specify specific areas, but I'm going to do the full lawn. Then we're going to go in here and choose those settings for this specific task. So I'm going to just make some quick adjustments here. All right, that looks good. And now we need to go through and select the schedule. So we're just going to schedule this and we're going to have it run twice a week, and then we're going to set the time. So now we've created the task, but right now I am going to just turn it off because I don't want it to run, but let's see if we can use it with our voice assistant. Then you just need to link the Mammotion skill for Alexa or Google Home, set it up in the app, and now we can say, hey Google, start Yuka Mini.
Got it. Starting Yuka Mini.
And did it work? There it is. So it's running the schedule that I have created. And once it's done, it's going to head back and charge up. Good job, boy.
I have now finished mowing the lawn a few different times with the Yuka Mini, and it did a great job. It looks great. It's able to go around everywhere, didn't get stuck or anything like that. It does exactly what I want it to do and completes the job. Now, overall, I'm really happy with the Yuka Mini. For my lawn, it works great. I don't need anything bigger than this. I love how it's actually tucked behind a tree or a little bush right here. No one would even notice that it's here, and it will be able to come out and mow my lawn without needing to open gates or anything like that. It can just get the job done. Now, even in just the few weeks that I've been using this, I've already received a few updates in the app, one of them being able to adjust if it's going to do the border and when it's doing the border, as well as adding wildlife protection. So it has a few different options now at night where it can not mow at all just to protect wildlife. You can have it go at a nighttime safety speed, so it's a little bit more cautious when it's driving around at night when it's using those LEDs. And it's nice that they continually update it and improve what it can do. And then I just love how many different options there are available in the app. If I want it to mow on rainy days, I can do that. If I want to turn on the lights up here, I can do that, or turn them off. If I want to have it follow the border or perimeter as it goes back to the base station, that's an option. And then I love how I have control of exactly where the border is going, so I can go back in at any time and just adjust a specific part of the border. I can also add patterns, so if I want to have a pattern on my lawn, I can go in there and it will cut everything but the pattern I choose. My lawn isn't quite big enough to do anything great with that, but maybe with the Mini, it will be fun to try out a few different options there. So that is the new Mammotion Yuka Mini. This is going to be great for lawn sizes of max 0.2 acres or 0.3 acres, now that we know exactly how that works. So if you have a lawn that size, definitely this is an option for you. You're gonna save a little bit and it's gonna be able to get your lawn done. So if you have any further questions about the Yuka Mini, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you wanna pick one up, make sure you check out the link down in the description. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.